This week on the show, Optic win a space in E-League, Cloud9 sign a new 5th, and StarSeries XIV is right around the corner. I'm Jack Westerman, joined by Jason Moses O'Toole, and you're watching PopFlash. Our first story of the new year is Turner's E-League tournament, the first event of which was the Road to Vegas, which took place over the weekend in Las Vegas, over in Nevada. So, Jason, this was a $35,000 tournament, but more importantly, the winning team would advance and earn a spot in the full E-League itself, which is going to take place during the summer, I believe, with a prize pool of $1.2 million. So, all to play for in this game. And it was just a game. It was one best-of-3 match between the North American team Optic and Polish team CSGL. So, as we get these two matches up on screen, we'll see that overall Optic took this match 2-0. Pretty light work on the second game as well. So, as we dive into it, Jason, Optic aren't really seen as a contender as being a top NA team. I think that's fair to say. They're floating around there, but really most people would give it to Liquid and Cloud9. And of course, North American teams have always historically struggled against Europeans. How did this matchup look on paper? A North American team, Optic versus CSGL, going into this game?
For me, it looked pretty cool. I mean, it was just kind of a test to see where Optic is at. And this is a team that, had a really good result in one LAN, even against Europeans, and then bombed out of the next one against only North Americans. And so this was kind of a new barometer just to see what was going to be going on with the squad. I mean, it's like a Tier 2 European team, so in my opinion, this is a team that Optic should have beat. I was very surprised by the scoreline on Cbble, but, I mean, on paper, this was just kind of a good test for them, a match that they should have won, and they did.
Okay, well, before we come and talk about Cobblestone, the first map was Train, and CSGL initially got off to a pretty good start. It was 10-5 on the CT side, so no alarm bells just yet, but then they moved over to the terrorist side, and Optic came back to win 11-3 on the CT side. Is this a case of mental strength, a display of mental strength from Optic, or just them taking advantage of a CT-sided map?
It's got to be the second one, taking advantage of a CT-sided map, because actually when I talked to them after this best of 3, like right after they had won, they had actually expected Train to be the third map, and it was a map that they hadn't played yet as a team, hadn't gone over. They went into it just completely not knowing, how they were going to play it, what they were going to do, and I think that actually might have just helped them, especially after being down in the first half. It's still just kind of like freewheeling, no pressure. We're not expecting to really win this. Let's just go out, rely on our skills, see what happens, and they ended up taking it, which is really, really cool. But yeah, they didn't prepare for this map whatsoever. They thought it would be the third. They thought Mirage would be played first. So good stuff from them.
Yeah, wow, okay, so not even practice and then get 16-13, that's a pretty good result for Optic. And then, of course, the second map was Cobblestone, and this was just a blowout, right? 16-3 overall, and Optic won terrorist side on Cobble, 14 rounds to 1. What on earth do you chalk that up to, Jason? What was going wrong for CSGL that half?
I think, honestly, they just had to have been mentally out of it, which is a bummer to see it happen after just one map, and it's such an important best of 3, but they were missing shots that you should never miss. I mean, they were missing completely blind opponents. They had a couple really nice pop flashes on the B platform when they were CTs, and just, it was like 2 different players who would just miss an entire clip without getting a single kill. So it just looked like Go Lounge had just been mentally checked out, that they weren't, and you kind of got the feeling, you got the sense that there was no chance they had at winning this map because none of their players were showing up, and that's just kind of the way things rolled. It was definitely a good win by Optic. They looked on top of their game. It's just they never really got tested, so we still kind of don't have this idea of where exactly they are. I think that 16-3 is a win that wouldn't happen, more often than not. So it's just kind of interesting, but I mean, all hats off to them for just completely dominating and not taking their foot off the pedal whatsoever.
Okay, well, Optic have now advanced. They've earned their place in the Turner E-League, which takes place in early summer this year. Now, we don't know much about the league so far, but Jake, what can you tell us about what we do know, and what do you expect from this flagship league, as people are calling it?
Well, we really don't know much at all. I mean, we don't really know anything, to be fair. We know that it's $1.2 million that they've announced. We know that there's going to be televised matches on North American television on Fridays next year during the season, one night per week. but we don't know the teams that are going to be involved. We don't know the structure really of it so much that's been announced. So it's still a lot of it is in the dark. I know the expectations right now, the rumors that are going around is that it's going to be mostly a North American league, that the top European teams haven't signed on to it quite yet. But I mean, I don't have the details. I don't know where that's going or what further talks. I think that would be very detrimental to such a big league if the top European teams aren't involved. So hopefully they can nail some things out soon and get some more information out to us.
Our second topic this week is the StarSeries XIV finals, which are due to take place this week, starting January 13th through to Sunday the 17th. Now, Jason, pretty big league, $200,000 up for grabs, and, well, 8 of the best teams in the world. Let's take a look at the groups on screen now. So, over in Group A, we've got Na'Vi, CyberZen, G2, and Luminosity. And the first team I want to talk about here, Jason, is CyberZen, this Chinese team who've kind of, or by all accounts, been shaking up the Asian scene as of late. They beat Tai Lu at LAN to win a place at this tournament, and I guess it's noteworthy in itself because we haven't seen many Asian teams competing internationally in CSGO so far. There's a couple of Japanese teams at ESWC and that kind of thing, but this is pretty major in CSGO terms, I guess. What impact can these guys have on the field here at StarSeries?
The honest answer is probably not much. I have no idea though. I personally haven't seen very many Asian teams play. Just like you said, we haven't got exposed to them very much. Well, from what we have seen, you think back to some of the DreamHack Stockholm qualifiers for Cluj-Napoca at the end of last year. With some very talented individual players. You know, you think back to that crazy guy who had a lot of hype around him. But this team in specific, I have no idea. The tough part is they're going against a Na'Vi team that ended the year so incredibly strong. That's going to be very, very difficult for them to open this tournament up on. I mean, anyone in this group is going to be a struggle for them. The one thing that Na'Vi will afford them, at the very least, is that Na'Vi is such a slow-paced team that it's going to allow them to feel a little bit comfortable. Na'Vi's not known for these rushes, for these high-pressure, very early on, attacks. So CyberZen is going to be able to chill, sit back at least in a little bit of the round, communicate, try and calm themselves down before some of the hits come in.
But even with Na'Vi's passive playstyle, you still see this being an easy win, this group for them. Yeah.
Not the whole group, but definitely this first matchup.
Yeah. Of G2 and Luminosity, who's going to give them the most challenge in their winners match?
I think Luminosity. I mean, Luminosity and Na'Vi have always had 6 series. Luminosity still hasn't overcome them, but G2's no slouch either. We still need to see a little bit. The opening of AZ and G2 wasn't that overwhelming. Big name pickup that they made at the end of last year after the major, after Dennis went towards Fnatic. But his first showing at IEM wasn't really that, didn't stand out to me very much. But Luminosity has just been continuously improving. Strategic team, so Fallen's going to be prepared for Na'Vi and for G2. A lot of talent on that Luminosity roster. So I think that's the team that'll give them the most trouble. And I think that is going to be, hopefully, it's what I'm hoping for, is to see another just sick best-of-3 matchup between Na'Vi and Luminosity.
Okay, well, if Na'Vi don't have any trouble in Group A, they will then, of course, advance to the brackets where they'll face one of the teams from Group B. And Group B is fairly stacked, I think it's fair to say, right? We've got Fnatic, Envy, and Titan. 3 of those teams, absolutely dominant as of, in the last few months. Who is going to advance from this mess, other than Titan finishing last? Is that fair to say?
I wouldn't,
Not necessarily?
Yeah, I wouldn't quite just, I wouldn't 100% it. But okay. This group is pretty crazy just because there's 3 potential tournament winners in it with Fnatic, Envy, and TQM, which is a bit of a bummer with how that played out. But, at the end of last year, even, the start of this year, TQM and Envy, they weren't very dominant. They were kind of slumping a little bit. And I think they just played, all 3 of those teams, Titan, TQM, and Envy, just played in, the Red Dot Championship, just played out online. Titan gave TQM a very good run for their money. TQM just crushed Envy in the online, in their matchup online. So pretty interesting to see. Also, Envy bringing in Maniac, TQM having Zonic. There's a lot of cool storylines we're going to see here. Maniac's going to be an analyst, though he's not going to be coaching Envy at the event. But this group is up in the air. I think it'd be very, very difficult. I think that you could say with some decent confidence that Fnatic will emerge from the group, although whether they're going to go out in first or second, I'm not sure.
You mentioned the circumstances as to how this occurred. So Group B kind of came together because Team Method dropped out of the event, so Envy stepped in as a replacement, right? But the seedings weren't adjusted, so as a result, Group A, not too bad, but Group B is completely stacked. Do you think it was a mistake not to reseed the whole event after Envy decided they were going to step in?
Yeah, absolutely. Or at least not, the lower two teams in each group. Maybe keep the top seeds in each group, but the lower seeds in each group needed to get reseeded, because this is just kind of a bummer. I mean, there's a lot of cool matchups that could occur in the bracket stage, but having one of, these are probably, with Navi, I mean, these are 3 of the top 4 teams in the world, and they're, someone's not going to make it out, so that's a bummer. But it's first term of the year, so no big issue, I guess.
Absolutely. And one more question before we move on from this.
Yeah.
So Fnatic obviously finished the end of the year 2015 on that tremendous hot streak. They won, several events in a row after the roster change, dropping Pronax. Is it fair to say, I know we're only looking at group stage matchups here, but if you allowed yourself to speculate a little bit, would you see Fnatic winning this fairly easily again?
No, not easily at all.
No?
Even towards the end of the year, I still think that Navi should have beat Fnatic in the last tournament of the year at Pro League Finals Season 2 back in December. So I think Fnatic still, it's another one of those things where, JW mentioned it in his reflection series with Thorin that they hadn't had a chance quite to practice very much with Dennis. It had only been like 1 to 2 weeks during that 3 tournament win streak they had. And then they probably went on a holiday break. So it remains to be seen how much they've come back in with practice with Dennis. And also just the first term of the year in general, a lot of these teams are just recently coming back to practice, both individually and as a team. So I expect there to be a little bit of shaky play from all the teams involved, really.
Last but not least, I've got some quickfire questions for you, Jason. So, quick as you can, give me your thoughts on the following news stories from the week. First of all, Cloud9 have announced the signing of 19-year-old Stewie2K as their 5th player.
Yeah, this is a risky pickup here. This is like a long-term pickup where they want to see some return later down the stretch. They're not looking for this to be, early returns on the investment. A lot of people are very curious as to why they would pick up Stewie2K, and I think it's got to indicate that they asked some more high-profile people, and everyone said no, so they decided to go with, someone they might be able to develop. It's going to be rough in the beginning, and I think Stewie is going to have a tough time adjusting, but if he can, he's very, very skilled, and it could be a big impact. But for the time being, they'll be able to compete in North America, but this pickup, they won't be able to compete in Europe.
Former professional player, or I guess current professional player, depending on how you look at it, Maniac has joined Team EnVyUs as a coach. Yeah,
I like this a lot. I worked with Maniac at IEM San Jose. Very impressive guy to talk to in terms of Counter-Strike knowledge, but also, everything, his approach to Counter-Strike was very much mental game. Everything he liked to talk about was, how are you mentally performing in the match? Are you solid? Are you confident? And that's a lot of the issues that Envy had, was getting frustrated during their matches. We saw a lot of EEPL finals at the end of the season. Just envious players being very stressed out, it seemed like, in games. So I think he can help out a lot with this squad.
And last but not least, this weekend there is the MLG Minor qualifier. So this is a regional North American qualifier for the main MLG major taking place at the end of March.
Yep, and that's gonna be really cool because there's a lot of the top North American teams that we see in Pro League. There's gonna be Enemy, which I'm excited to see. It has my boy Kusta on it, so I hope he goes beast mode. Complexity is supposed to be there. Winter Fox is gonna be there. The big one as well, Optic Gaming. You got to consider them the favorites to win this outright. So it's just the one winner of this goes to the major qualifier, and then one more from North America will get in the last chance qualifier, which is online. But there's going to be some cool matchups, and I could see some small upsets here from a couple squads.
That's it for this week. I'm Jack Westerman, joined by Jason Moses O'Toole.
And we'll be back next Wednesday with another episode of PopFlash.